So I guess we're at a point to where we can talk about this as a project. It's kind of complete. Most of my interior's in now. We're going to sit down real fast, and I'm going to go ahead and try and get as much light in here as I can, even though it's raining outside. And we'll talk about what we've done. So for starters, just to give you an idea of how quick this thing boots up. It boots up almost instantly. It takes longer to connect to my phone via Bluetooth to pull up Android Auto than anything else. Still would pick it up before I get out of the driveway normally. Integra climate control is in here. Works fine. Everything's wired correctly. For anyone that's trying to install some other thing in here, the 10.8 inches kind of comically large. I hadn't really expected it. It is adjustable though. When I picked this size, I was thinking about the 11-inch screen that's in our new Prius. And in the new Prius, it's rectangular and about this long. I wasn't thinking about how big this would be or how close it comes over to putting keys in. It is adjustable height, lower, so if I need the vents, I can get to them. If not, it's still there. And it gives me the option of air conditioning, which it's summer in Georgia, so that's mandatory. To give you an idea of what's under this thing. Let's see, there's the two releases. Standard DIN. It's been moved up here from down here. This is a 94 to 02 Integra climate control. It's down here right now. It's just been placed in there because the thing pretty much perfectly fits in a DIN slot. You can get to all your switches. No big issue. I just realized I've got plastic. That's the rear view camera that goes with this thing. I still haven't wired in. But everything else is wired in. Mic's over here. You know, I've got my AC, everything like that. I'm still having issues with my VSS. You can tell as soon as I turned it on, it just jumped to 40 miles per hour. It's got to be on the outside. I replaced all the caps up here. So without that, we're going to talk about how this actually got done. Come on, Root. Come on, garage. Stop messing with me. Lights back on. All right. So when I started this project, the Integra climate control is currently in the car, but you have identical plugs, right? And my big thought process on this was that this had to be so simple because every Honda from the 90s had a fan, you know, with 4 settings and an off, right? And your pins have to be something along the lines of ground, 1, 2, 3, 4, and an LED. So seeing the 6 pins, I figured it had to be the same thing. It was the first thing I plugged in and I tried. I didn't pay much attention, plugged it in, went through all 4, was getting fan, turned it off. This is what I have to deal with while I'm trying to work. So next I went to go try the green pin, see if everything worked all together. Whenever I tried the green pin, whenever I put the Integra on 2, was the only time I could get the AC to come on. For some reason, fan speed. So seeing as this is simple, it's 6 pins, 6 settings, or 6 pins, 4 settings, and a ground, right? And an LED. I figured it had to be a different, especially because this board is different than the one that's in there, like to the point that this has a daughter board down there for the AC button. The pathings are completely different. I was pretty sure the pins had to be different. Lo and behold, I spent hours mapping this out. And to be proven wrong, ultimately the correction was over here. So I'm going to hop over to the PC real fast. I'll show you what I was dealing with. So I laid this out in Illustrator, and while I did measure like with other things pressed just to make sure they were all the same, Largely, this is the mapping for the Del Sol and Integra. I couldn't find a mapping of any of this stuff anywhere online, so I had to trace the pin. I had to test for continuity and trace the traces through the board to figure out what was what. There's a couple notes on here, like there's an anchor pin and only 3 grounds versus 4 grounds. These were labeled things that were in the path. Because this goes to a daughter board, the 3 and the 1 were the label of the wires that were actually going to the AC daughter board. Ultimately, after testing and going through everything, even though the AC buttons are going through different paths to get there with different resistors, different capacitors, it doesn't matter. They're almost identical. It's almost the same. The big issue came down here when you get to the Del Sol and Integra fan pinouts. And I have no idea why they did this. Both of these tested as ground on the back of the climate control. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. When I depinned them, this is a green wire. I'm going to assume this is the LED because this was a much thicker wire. So I assume it held the ground. For the back of the Integra climate control, when I measured it, both of these X's measured as ground, and 1, 3, 2, 4. It's like completely out of order. You're just rotating these 3 pins. We cycled the pins on the Del Sol. So 2 moved over, X moved down to the bottom, 3 moved up to the middle. All right. Plugged it back in and it was working like a charm. So ultimately, this is the pinout that you need to change on the back of that green connector to get an Integra climate control to work cleanly in the Del Sol. I'm going to cut back to the car in a few minutes to talk about depinning these, because while I couldn't find a pinout for any of these, I did find a wiring, very old 90s manual for Honda wiring that showed how to remove pins from all sorts of different connectors, and finally found this 6-pin. So I'll go over that. I didn't do it quite like they managed to do it, but was still able to get them out pretty easily. Swapped them around, popped them back in, plugged it up, good to go. So when it comes to the brown plug, there's a couple things you've got to do first. You find my pin tool. Okay, so you're going to have to pop these off. Top out. The outside ones are pretty easy. It just allows us to fold forward. You're going to get access to it. Still got to pop off these tabs on the side. They're not especially hard, but once you get them going, the whole thing slides out. So what this has is a bunch of prongs in the back that keep all of this stuff straight. Whenever you're done with this, before you put that back on, you want to make sure you get these straight in like columns. So as far as removing it, hopefully the camera can show this. I can't really tell if it can see or not. This is the shape of the pins right here. It's kind of this shape, right? What they recommended in the manual was that you had a flat tool that you slid in the middle, right? Like right down through here. And then you pulled up to pop the trigger, right? So using my standard pick, what I've realized I can do really easily is if you push in this little gap right here, so you're going to push in this little gap, then you're going to hold it at an angle, push into the gap, slide it back, and then lift. It'll pop these things right out. So, for example, put it in, push it down, and push back. And did that get it? Nope. Sometimes it takes a try or two. Push in, push back. That time it slid right out. So there you go. Okay, so once we've got our wires all set up, we're getting ready to put this back in. First thing you need to do is make sure that you have 3 columns of wires, because these little pins are going to set in on each side of the wire. Once you get it in there right, it'll just slide right in. Snap it on. Pull your wires all up to center. Snap it on. Snap it on. Simple as that. Okay, so as far as modifying things to fit this in, there's very little you've got to do. First off, this wire comes from the floor. You've got a ton of extra play in it to put in your climate control. Secondly, the harness that has your stereo in it comes from up here, so instead of running all the way down here, you've got a little bit extra room by having it up here. The downsides, you don't have like a giant cavity to put your hands in, but you should be able to get there. Things that are going to have to be modified. So right here, there's normally a piece that does like this. I just clipped it out with some clippers. Hopefully you can see that. This is so that whenever I put it in a 3D printed housing, you have to kind of hook it in. But, you know, this is not any place that's displayed out on the surface. You can't see it. So it's pretty much a reversible mod. The second thing you're going to have to do, and forgive me, I'm trying not to take this stereo out because I had to run roughly 1 million wires to get the dang thing completely in. But if you can look at these corners right here, I had to notch them out just a little bit. There's same occurs down there on the bottom. I don't know if you can really see that because of the light, but there's a notch out there on the bottom. Those are required because the inside of this hole is slightly smaller than the stereo. We kept it as close to the actual stereo format in there. It's a little bit larger on my end. It will 100%, you know, with notching, fit in there without having to compromise any of this stuff on the outside edge. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about these 3D printed brackets. Let me see how much I can get this out here. That's about as far as I can get because all the wires are plugged in. So down here in the bottom, there is a 4mm heat set pushed in here. This is to mimic the normal mounting point of the old climate control down here. There's a little slot right here in the bottom. We're going to bolt this in so it can't get out. Worth mentioning, back here in the back of this, can't really show you, but through that hole on the back side of the dash, there is a plastic piece that's part of the molding. It is about 5.5 inches back from this edge, which means most modern radios, tape cassettes, everything will be fine. I'm sure I've got a photo that I'll stick in here of my CD player. It sticks out about 1/2 inch. As for this, I was able to recess it pretty far in there. For the bolt holes, I'm using a single bolt on both sides. Between all the holes that are lined up here and the 2 bolt holes that are in here, you should be able to adjust this thing within 4mm forward, backwards to any space that you need. Once that's said, you're just going to slide it in. Because there are 2 holes that exist in the back, I'm going to go ahead and try and pull some cables through the back just to make this a little bit easier. Because I have like 4 adapters back here on the back side of it to get it in. Because I had to go from Honda. I had to patch the old cable because it was cut out. Then I had to go from the old cable to Honda. And then I had to go to Honda to ISO. And then from ISO into the proprietary thing. So there's like 3 cable adapters back here. So need a little bit of space. But once you get it in, it sits in pretty good. Just take a small screwdriver. To keep everything uniform for the whole project, you'll need 5 M4 by 8mm. Let's see. Where is that the hole? I think that might be the hole. That's the hole. I was just trying to put the screw in at the wrong angle. Okay. So now that that's in, just to show you, that is 100% secure. That's not going anywhere. Moving on, this is the mounting bracket we made for the climate control out of the Integra. Again, 4 heat inserts. These are 4mm just to keep everything even. Simplify the amount of hardware that you need to put this in. And as I was saying earlier, with those tabs right there, you kind of have to tuck them around the original mounting holes. So it'll pop right in, just like that. Get it in snug. I suggest having a long round screwdriver to drive these in. I tried doing it with a square shafted one, and because this space is so tight on these top two mounting holes right here, I just kept rubbing against the other mounting plate. So just going to rinse repeat for all four of these. The bottom ones are super easy to get to, so there's no issues there. Okay, now that's said and done, I'm just going to pop this in here just so you can see what it looks like. It's going to fit up to the original stereo mounting holes. You do need to get rid of the metal plate that's down here at the bottom. It comes out whenever you unscrew the old one. I'll be right back because I've left my mixing cable for the air conditioner mixer inside. It will use the OEM one. I'm going to try and cut this one down because the OEM one's extra long for where this is, and it requires you to kind of snake it around a little bit, so there's more friction whenever you're trying to run through your air conditioner vent options and your temperature gauge. Okay, so this is the Del Sol mixing cable. I have no idea if it's a different length than the one that comes with the Integra, because I did not get one with the Integra. But Honda Homie, my friend Branching Rex, was pulling a B16, and I asked him if he could pull the climate control, or a B18, and asked me if he could pull the climate control. Pulled it for me, just paid shipping. So not mad about the broken plug. That's still pretty solid. The factory mixing cable works just fine. So as it is, you can kind of coil this thing up a ridiculous amount to make it to fit. As you can tell, like, it'll still move. Just the more turns that cable has to do, the more friction, the harder it is to push this thing back and forth. So I'm going to try and cut it down. I have a good idea on how to go about that, but first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go ahead and slide it in. The first thing you've got to feed, 100%, have got to feed this cable before you can do anything else. I'm going to go ahead and tap this back in real fast with one or two of the standard mounting bolts. It was on the old stereo bezel. Make sure this is snug before I go cutting cables, because I would hate for them to be different lengths afterwards. Alright, so we've got this up in here. We can run it back here and pop it into its old position. So I'm going to be cutting about that long off to give you an idea how much that gets coiled back and forth. As it is, that's a standard throw. It doesn't feel any different than it normally would, but I'm going to cut about that much off of this thing. I'm going to have to find some way to mark it real fast, but we'll go ahead and fix this real fast and get it taken care of. So what I did was I felt around for the back end of the clip. You can see where the clip was. It's between this point and this point. I just took that braid pokey thing that I used to take the pins out, went ahead and etched it right there so I could see where I wanted to cut it, giving it a little bit extra length. I'm just going to take some wire strippers, and we're going to try and see what that fit on there. What will that fit in? Okay, so it'll fit in the second groove. And we're just going to go ahead and try and see if I can cut this sleeving off. Yep, cut the sleeving off right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take an X-Acto knife. I'm going to split it down through the center, or hobby knife, razor blade, whatever. I'm going to split it down through the middle, going to take that sleeving and I'm going to put it on this end, and then I'm going to use that as a guide to rebend this kink. Okay, so we cut this piece off of the end with the eyelet because we don't want to refold the eyelet, and this end has that little groove built into it that locks into the back of the climate control, right? It's going to be infinitely easier to refold that little Z at the end than it is to refold this eyelet over here. So we're going to slide this all the way back up. We're going to line this up to the edge of that Z. I don't know if you can see that right there. And then we're going to just grab our needle nose pliers. And we're going to build ourselves a new Z. By far, folding this, infinitely easier than it was trying to remove the other end. Little Z's a little bit thicker than theirs. I don't think it'll really matter. I am going to go back and tweak this just a little bit, just so it's a little bit more of a Z, and make sure it locks in a little bit better. Closer to right angles for everything. That's a little bit more of a right angle. We'll do the same for the other side. Probably should have gotten my needle nose pliers to do this. Actually, I will grab my needle nose pliers. Let me roll this corner a little bit more tightly. It's still a little bit bigger than the old one, but I think it'll probably work just fine. We just need to clip off this excess right here. Okay, now that we've got our shorter mixer rod installed back in, we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug everything back in. Let's see. There we go. Everything's plugged in. Let's roll it around so our mixer rod's on the bottom and everything else is kind of out of the way. I'm going to try and feed this through now. Looks like it went right through. This is the worst part. There's so much extra cable under here that sometimes you have to adjust it a little bit. So it's still out of the way. Yep. Okay. Now I can bolt this guy back in. Screw. Okay, let me get some keys and we will run through this real fast. Okay, the last thing we got to do before we crank this thing up is make sure our mixer rod is connected over here. There it is. Too many things in the way. So, I always like to make sure it's on cold. And when you grab that pin, pull it all the way forward before you hook it up. And then, once it's all the way forward, hold it while you lock your cable in place. Let's see if I can get you under there and maybe you can see what I'm doing. I don't know that it will actually get there, but we will see. So, mixer cable is looped on here, and then we have to snap that in right there. Then you should be able to open and close, no issues, right? So, moment of truth here. Let's pop our screen in. That is thoroughly locked into the dash. Grab our keys. I'm not going to crank it because it's loud as fuck. Take it off circulation. So slider going over to heat, slider going off to cold. Why is it not coming on one? Oh, it's on one. It's just very quiet. So on one, on two, on three, on four. Air conditioning, you can actually feel air conditioning going all the way down. Recirculating air in the car. Just top, nothing at the bottom. My little girl is listening to K-pop on my phone in the house right now. Top and bottom. Just bottom, nothing out of the top. Bottom and defrost. Yeah. And just defrost. So we are 100% good now, and we can start putting our dashboard back together. Okay, so let's talk about the whole process of doing this. Ultimately, you really only have, if you don't count the 3D printing, which for this top bracket, I'm including two versions. You can either do this upper din piece all as one piece, or you can do it like I did in two sections, where you do the back section that all goes in the dash at a thicker layer level, so there's less layers, less points of failure, right? And then you do the front piece, and I did it at a higher resolution, so even if you see behind here, it doesn't look super janky, like a whole ton of layer lines. And then you just glue the two pieces together. You know, you're done. And then there's the piece down here for the old DIN slot to be converted into climate control for the Integra. I'm slowly undergoing integrification here. I got my nice Acura airbag. Got this. I'm pretty sure soon I'm going to try and put in Integra handbrake. It just has that little lip right here. That's the big difference. And it has a rubber piece instead of the leather boot. But I'm pretty sure that will actually fit in here too. So anyways, back on topic. The only things after you've got all these pieces printed out, you got your heat sets put in here. The only hardware you're going to require are 5M 4x8 bolts and 5M4 heat sets. There's 4 on here, which are the 4 screw holes on the back of this, and there's one in the middle of this top piece, which is how the old climate control bolted in, right? So the actual modifications you have to make are very small in retrospect. I'm gonna turn that AC back on because it's friggin' hot out here in Georgia. You just have to cut the notches up here on the top of the climate control. I've already talked about that, and it's just so you can kind of fold it into the thing, because the bolt holes between these two things have to kind of tuck underneath each other. They're so close that you have to kind of tuck them to get them in there. And then you have to cut the notches on the back lip up here where the old climate control is. So anything that's here is completely reversible. The other two things are you have to repin your brown connector, which is your fan speed connector. That is also completely reversible. And now that I'm seeing this, I just turned on my lights and this went off, so I think my two grounds might be backwards in here. The green wire and the ground, I may pull this out later and swap it to find out, but if not, it's still functional even without the lights. It's questionable if they're coming on or not, because I'm still getting a little bit of light over here. But that's something I'll figure out in the future, and I'll send an update. With that said, I'm trying to get back on topic. Okay. 4 issues that we're having here. Or 4 installation processes. One of them, which is totally optional, was probably the hardest one. One, repinning the connector down here. Not a big issue, other than the fact that I just learned that my lights aren't working, so the two X's I have on the thing might be backwards. They might need to be inverted on the Integra side so that the green wire goes up to the top, and I think that might be the LED, and the diagonal corner on the other side is the ground, potentially. I'll have to try it and find it out at some later thing. I have my interior together, so it may be a little while before I get back around to that. After that, the optional piece of cutting your mixer wire. If you don't mind a little bit stronger of a throw right here to push this stuff back and forth, it's not bad at all. It's not even necessary. I just did it to clean up a little bit of clutter because you got a ton of wire back there. Cutting the notches on the back side of the Integra climate control to fit it inside the new bezel. Have to, because the bolts are basically on top of each other up there at the top, so you have to kind of weave it in there. Even if that was to go back into an Integra, it would not impact it functionally in any way, shape, or form. So completely reversible. Having to notch out the inside of the old climate control bezel to be able to fit a DIN slot in there. It's only on the back lip that you couldn't see anyways. So effectively, it's completely reversible. If you don't cut this, don't cut the mixer rod, and you don't mind repinning your green connector, you're at 0 loss for trying to reverse this. Things that I learned while doing it. Apparently, just now, I learned that potentially my 2 grounds are backwards, one of which going to the LED. It impacts 0 things on functionality other than the light potentially being off at nighttime. I'll have to get back to that, and I'll figure it out soon. But that's it. I hope this is a worthwhile project for some other people who are trying to stay in the spirit of the original Del Sol, without having to completely trash and rebuild a dashboard in order to move radios and stuff around. I'm ultimately just trying to modernize the car so it's a little bit more comfortable for me to be in. And as always, thanks for watching the whole thing. Appreciate you guys.